Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, The Determined Gardener. Today we are going to tackle a problem that lots of gardeners deal with in their garden, and that is, drum roll, powdery mildew. You see it right here on my peony garden. Actually, it just began to form. You can see it right here getting ready to spread to the rest of the leaves. So I am going to use a method that I have seen some other gardeners use, which involves milk, bacteria, soap, and water. So let's get to it. So powdery mildew is a bacteria that usually spreads on plants like zucchini. Peony leaves are very susceptible to powdery mildew. It's nothing that any fault of your own. It just forms quickly and very rapidly. Powdery mildew doesn't just affect the leaves, but it also affects all the stems. So if I don't do anything about it, all the powdery mildew is going to go all down this stem and affect and jump all on top of the other leaves and affect these stems. Once I realized that I did have powdery mildew, I have to admit I did wait a couple of, at least a week, but now it is really time to treat it. And you can see powdery mildew doesn't just come in this form of a powdery looking substance like baby powder. It can also look like these spots you see right here on the leaves. Once you get something like this, it's very important to treat it because it does spread rapidly. I want to tell you, it doesn't kill your plant. Overall, it just doesn't look very appealing. So we're going to treat this powdery mildew. You can see it right here. It's in this section of this area. It hasn't spread to the rest of the hedge. So we're going to get to it and treat this as quickly as we can. So the first thing you're going to do before you even start a treatment is get rid of the leaves. You want to get rid of the leaves that have the powdery mildew. So I have my shears right here. I do have alcohol. So I have a cotton swab. I'm going to douse it with some alcohol. I'm going to wipe down the shears, and I'm going to get rid as much of the leaves with the powdery mildew as I can. So I'm going to start with this one. So I'm just going to cut like so. And I'm going to cut this one. Now, if you haven't noticed, they are still buds forming, so I'm not going to cut the ones that have the buds. I'm going to cut just leaves that don't have the peony buds still coming. So I'm not going to do too much cuts. I'm just going to do individual leaves so it can just stop spreading, and the ones that have the worst, now I'm going to sanitize again. This is some of the affected leaves that I have. You don't want to leave these leaves in your garden or make them get away from you. Once you do cut them, you don't want to compost them. You want to put them in the garbage or dispose of them as quickly as you can, because these spores can spread onto more of your leaf, and that would not be something that you would want. So again, you want to get rid of these leaves as quickly as you can. Don't leave them on the ground in your garden. Don't put them in your compost. Put them in the garbage as soon as you can. We finish cutting as much leaves as possible. If you have a garden that does not have any peonies still forming, you can cut as many leaves as you can. That's the best way to get rid of these powdery mildew and stop it from spreading. We have our solution here. It contains water, dishwashing liquid, and milk. We have 3 parts water, 1 part milk, and this bottle of dishwashing liquid, which is bacteria treated. So what we're going to do is combine all that and spray it on the leaves and stems. I'm putting my milk in. And guys, this is not a science. You know, you can kind of do it the way you want. Just make sure you have more water than milk. And I'm putting a little bit of dishwashing liquid. Now, this is supposed to make the solution stick to the leaves and stems a little bit. You want to shake this solution up, make sure it's nice and mixed in, and now it's time to spray. So what we're going to do is just spray the leaves with this solution. Anywhere that you see powdery mildew, you're just going to give it a little bit of hit And of course, if you guys don't know, powdery mildew is caused by a fungi. It doesn't hurt the plant, but it is something that you want to treat right away if you spot it. And you can see right here, this one is really, see, as I said, this one's really covered with that fungi, so you want to treat that. Powdery mildew typically thrives in temperatures between 60 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit. It's a good idea if your plants are suffering from powdery mildew to remove the branches and foliage to give it more room to breathe. Good circulation, especially under the brush, will keep the fungus from taking root in the first place and reduce the spread of it to parts of your garden. Also, if you can, and this is only if you really want to, remove the fungus plant altogether just to play it safe and treat the affected area. Avoid planting in that area for about maybe one season. Well, that should do the trick. Treating the fungus can be very difficult, I know, because the spores are carried through the air. That's why it's so important not to leave the affected foliage in your garden. You also want to avoid watering overhead. This will only encourage the mold to grow and spread, and you don't want that. Instead, water as close to the soil as possible to prevent splashing. Spores never stop producing more spores, so if you don't destroy the affected leaves, the problem can never be eradicated, and that will only unfortunately get worse. If you want to use a chemical, try neem oil. It's supposed to be an organic treatment. Neem oil works both by treating existing powdery mildew and protects the plant against further infection. Certain shrubs and plants are more susceptible to powdery mildew, like peonies, like mine, hydrangeas, zucchini, squash, dahlias, and even roses. And you know what? The list just goes on because powdery mildew is very common. But if you treat it early, you can get it to be less noticeable. My advice is before you even start to see the fungus, treat your plant and shrub. Another thing you want to remember is don't fertilize affected plants until you think the powdery mildew outbreak is under control. The spores favor young growth, so fertilizing a plant while an infection is still present can actually increase the spread. So here are some few tips that you should keep in mind. Plant in the sun. Planting in sunny areas will reduce the humidity that keeps powdery mildew thriving. Prune plants as much as possible. Pruning plants will improve the airflow around the foliage and reduce the humidity that attracts some types of powdery mildew. Remove all the dead foliage from the ground. Dead or dying foliage or leaves will drop to the ground and become a breeding ground. Remove all the dead leaves of the plant and from the ground, which will reduce the problem from spreading. And lastly, space out your plants. I know this hedge is very tight, but I wanted it that way because it's so beautiful. But for those of you who have space, that's the best idea. Give these plants significant space. That will help the air circulation, which will also allow water to better evaporate from the leaves. Okay guys, so that's the method and how I treat powdery mildew. I will be watching these leaves and these stems very closely to see how it's doing. I will be coming back in the next couple of days to make sure the powdery mildew has been removed. If it hasn't, I will repeat the process all over again. For any of you guys that have problems with powdery mildew, this is a method that I use that I have been personally successful in. So again, thank you so much for joining me here on my channel, The Determined Gardener. Don't forget to hit that sub button and don't forget to share this video with your family and friends and like this video as well. Until next time, bye-bye. See you in the next video.